Welcome to this tutorial. In this video, I will help you optimizing your piano technique. We will be analyzing the efficiency of piano playing in the broken octaves, but also in some chords. And at the end of the video, I will share with you my thoughts on why do composers ever use this martellati and what's the musical meaning and purpose of them. And a small spoiler, it's not in order to kill your hands. So let's start. There are two very important efficiency concepts that I'm going to share with you within this video. And as a musical example, let's take Sonata Pathétique by Beethoven, Opus 13. For example, this spot. In order to play that left hand smoothly, we have to understand two concepts, two efficiency concepts. The first one is a proper weight transfer from finger to finger. What does it mean? So in order to hit the fifth finger, I don't use just finger, I don't move my finger down, but I just get some stability in it, getting tension in this muscle. That assures that I have a stable knuckle. But then I deliver the finger, assures that I have stability in it, getting tension in this muscle. That assures that I have a stable knuckle. But then I deliver the finger to the key not using that muscle. I just keep it stable. I just keep it slightly tense. But I that getting tension in this muscle. That assures that I have a stable knuckle. But then I deliver the finger to the key not using that muscle. I just keep it stable. I just keep it slightly tense. But I use a rotational movement for that. In this case, counterclockwise. And then, as soon as I proceed to the thumb, I transfer the weight that is now on the fifth finger to the thumb, also using rotational movement, now clockwise. In other words, I just walk from finger to finger, transferring the weight really quickly. If this is something new for you, I would suggest you to practice really slowly and really trying to feel what happens in your hand and trying to release each finger when it's done. So when I step on the fifth finger using this rotation, I release the thumb, I release the right part of my hand palm. As soon as I focus my right hand palm and proceed to the thumb, I have stability in that finger, but that part of the hand, my left part of my hand palm, is released right now. And most probably you will need to play that pretty slow, so you would be able to proceed all this and observe carefully that you are getting rid of tension in the fingers that are done. But nevertheless, even if we do that, it doesn't mean that we will play that obviously smoothly and without tension. Because, for example, I will follow in my own advice now. I transfer the weight from finger to finger properly, releasing the rest, but I still feel tense. This is because my wrist is in a tense position. It's blocked. So in order to fix that, I have to be able to release my wrist and to feel some flexibility in it. And for that purpose, I suggest you to practice this martellati in smaller groups, for example, in groups of 3 notes. Transferring the weight from finger to finger, as was mentioned before, but within one wrist movement, down, up. So your wrist goes down, you lean toward the first note, and go up on the last note of the group. Important, when you reach the end of the group, when you play the last note of it, don't pull away the finger. That would be wrong, because in this case you get tense. Just release the finger quickly, pulling up the forearm, not even the wrist, but just the forearm. Just imagine that somebody is doing that to you. It's actually helpful to practice like that. When you work on release in the hand, just release your fingers. Forearm, not even the wrist, but just the forearm. Just imagine that somebody is doing that to you. It's actually helpful to practice like that. When you work on release in the hand, just release your fingers and allow another hand to kick your working hand away from the keyboard. And check whether you have tension. If you feel any kind of resistance, it means that you are not releasing properly. As soon as I feel comfortable with that, using one wrist movement down and up, you can play it in the other direction, leaning on the thumb and then going away on the second thumb, down, up, like that, making sure that you release your fingers really quickly and properly after each group. Then we play 5 notes within one group, but still using just one wrist movement. So fingers inside the hand palm, you transfer the weight, but your wrist unites the smaller movements, going down and up within one group, then oppositely, like that. And then when you reach the stage when you can play even longer groups, you slightly bounce with the hand, some notes will be played while going down with the wrist, and some while going up. That allows me to not losing stability in the knuckles, but nevertheless release the wrist and feeling that necessary flexibility in it. Of course, you will minimize those movements, so they are not going to be big. First, when you just try to master, just try to grasp that sensation, I would suggest you exaggerate those movements just for practicing purposes, like that. So those are exaggerated movements, of course. When you will be playing that longer line, you will have to optimize them and minimize them to the extent when they almost would not be visible. So now you might notice something since I told you that, but if you would just observe my playing without my comments, you would not even pay attention to those movements, so small they are, but nevertheless they are making a huge difference. Such wrist movements help tremendously in shorter martelletti, like for example in Schumann, Papillon. Like in this spot, optimizing my movements, my wrist movements, and transferring the weight between fingers and playing the whole group within one motion might help to get rid of any possible problems in this spot. So what's happening here? I transfer the weight between fingers, but I also use a movement down with the wrist, down, and then when I reach that accented note, I just stand on it, pushing my forearm slightly forward and allowing my knuckle, and as well as my wrist, going higher. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So there are 2 motions, rotational motion and vertical motion in the wrist. Of course, then of course you will minimize them. So again, they will be very close, but nevertheless powerful enough to make a huge difference. Let's have a look on more complicated martelletti, when you have to play this martelletti not just between 5 and 1, but when you have a chord and the note played with the 5th finger, for example, like in the Valet Dobermann by Franz Liszt. Like for example, in this spot. So that's pretty uncomfortable because you have a wide position, you have a lot of stretch between your 3rd finger and the 5th finger. And the dynamics 3/4 works, of course, very confusing here.
The music is so loud.
So in order to manage that martellato, we have also to consider a couple of things. First of all, we have to spread our fingers. So quite often I see people trying to manage that martellato, keeping their 3rd finger on the wider part of the white key, like that. Here you might see how tense is my hand. In this position, there's absolutely no opportunity for me to release the wrist, to get rid of the tension, to spread our fingers. So quite often I see people trying to manage that martellato, keeping their 3rd finger on the wider part of the white key, like that. Here you might see how tense is my hand. In this position, there's absolutely no opportunity for me to release the wrist, to get rid of the tension in the wrist. So for that, we have to spread our fingers and let our longer fingers to play further in the keys. In that position, I might be able to use gravity better, thanks to the rotation. And also in that position, I might still be able to find some freedom in the wrist. Not much, but still enough to get rid of a good amount of tension. But nevertheless, even following both of these efficiency strategies that I was speaking about, it might happen that one day won't be enough for you to build this new skill, because when we try to build new skills, quite often we need more practicing sessions. We need to sleep on it, and we need to let our body to get used to this new skill. That's why please don't be upset if you are not able to get off tension within one practice session. But what is very important is to give your body time and opportunity to get used to this, learning that not through tension, not trying to break through those difficulties, but finding your, user-friendly way to manage them. So for master such uncomfortable tremolo, I would suggest two practicing strategies. The first one, playing them very fast, but in a shorter groups, as I explained before. So just 3 notes within one wrist movement, very precise fingers that release keys exactly when they're done. Immediately. Just releasing the fingers very quickly. And then opposite way. That's more complicated, actually. Then when you feel that you can get rid of tension immediately, you make that group longer, like 5 notes. Immediately releasing the hand afterwards. So you play in a real tempo, following shorter groups, giving your hands enough time to release after each group. And then if you want to play that through, like practicing the whole bar, you just play it slower in a tempo that allows you to play without tension. And so on. So you give yourself just a comfortable tempo in which you can really control that you don't accumulate any tension. So if you will urge for comfort in your practice, and you will feel how in the course of a few days your body will feel more and more comfortable within this spot. So at the end you will be able to play it and fast and without tension. Another thing to consider here, that although we have 3/4, there is always a limit of speed if we want to play very loud. So we either play very loud on piano or very fast, but we don't play very loud and very fast. That's not healthy, and this is exactly, that's not healthy, and in most of cases it also sounds horrible.
That horrible, agonizing music!
So in this particular spot, this fortissimo would rather correspond to the left hand that has all these dramatic events, while in the right hand, of course, in the right hand you have kind of a machine gun, but this machine gun is working at the background. In the foreground, you have some glorious fighting on knives, let's say so. It means that you don't really need to play that extremely loud. You would rather play that relatively light, allowing your left hand to take the initiative and present this material with a lot of passion. Because otherwise, if that right hand would sound as loud as the left hand, it won't sound really rich. It won't sound like a stereo. It would sound like a mess. So you don't want that. You still want to build the layers of the piece according to their significance, artistic significance. But let's return to the tone, because there is still a couple of things that I have to say about this martellati. So why the composers use this martellati? Why they use this compositional device? And the answer is because all these perpetuum mobile ostinato rhythms, they pump an enormous amount of energy into a piece and make you feel really energized. So in this case, we really feel energized, we really feel electricity of that spot. Just compare how it would sound if we would have an accompaniment like. So that's just another music. It sounds very different and it sounds not as tense. And in order to provide that tension, in order to help the composer convey that huge amount of electricity, there are two things to consider. First of all, even if I would follow all the advices mentioned in this video, but if I would go deeply into the keys, it still won't sound energizing enough. So it still sounds quite heavy, quite grounded. This is because I go very deeply into the keys and play it rather legato. So in order to make it truly energizing, I have to play closer to the surface of the keys because a funny fact that probably not all of you know, that the point of the sound occurs not at the very bottom of the key, not here, but slightly before. So actually, in order to hit the string, I not obviously have to go to the bottom of the key. Although we work with the bottom of the key a lot in order to benefit our expressivity and to improve the control over the keyboard, but nevertheless, in spots like these ones, I would not recommend that because that would make your playing heavy and sound like legato. So as you see, avoiding diving too deeply in the keyboard. Make it sound more crispy, make it sound more precise and rather non-legato than if I go deeply to the keys. Because this spot reminds me rather of technology-inspired modernist pieces like Toccata by Prokofiev. So that ostinato, that permanent rhythm, smaller rhythm, taka, 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 brings an enormous amount of energy here. That's why another tip that is very important for us ostinati like these ones is avoiding too many impulses. Because if I would play like, which unfortunately one might hear quite often, this doesn't work, and you clearly hear that it doesn't sound convincing. This is because I was using impulses every crotchet, every quarter note in the beginning. And then when the material changes, even worse, I was using impulses twice per bar. And this is exactly what makes your performance very heavy and rather amateur. So we want avoiding that. And for that, we not just follow all those efficiency tips that I was sharing with you properly, transferring the weight to the thumb, enforcing the thumb in the same way as we enforce the fifth finger, but also, of course, we need to use our ears a lot, listening to the result and adjusting some things if we hear that some notes sound louder than others. Please check out my comprehensive video courses dedicated to specific pieces below, following the link in the description. If you want a personalized advice on your piano playing and would like to have an online lesson with me, please follow the links below in order to contact me. I hope that this video was helpful. Please subscribe, like it if you like it, and see you next time. Have fun playing piano. Welcome to this tutorial. This video will be fully packed with very useful tips that will help you to master this etude faster and play it with less tension. But let's start from a bit controversial topic. The fact is that we can help ourselves from the very first day working on this piece. We can help ourselves redistributing material between hands. So it means that a lot of notes from the right hand we may actually take in the left hand. And that would allow us to use an alternative fingering and get rid of tension in a number of spots. The controversy here is, of course, that I know quite a lot of teachers that don't allow such tricks and forbid their students to redistribute things between hands, believing that if it's written in the score in the right hand, we are not allowed to take it in the left hand. However, with all the respect to that opinion, my point is that the life is so desperately short. And as professional piano players, we stand in front of an enormously huge piano repertoire, full of beautiful pieces that you fall in love with immediately when you hear them, and there is absolutely no chance to play all this beautiful music within a lifetime. So that's why my goal is not just to bring everything what I play to the highest possible level, but also to spend as little time practicing these pieces as possible. And I believe that's a very important skill. That's why if I'm able to use a more efficient solution, not losing the quality, I just go for it. Of course, we have to respect polyphony, and I will show to you how to redistribute things between hands in such a way that it would not mess things up. So let's quickly have a look at what we can actually adjust and redistribute between hands. So from the very beginning, if you have big enough hands, you might take that C, the very first sound, in the middle voice in the left hand. And that would allow you to start that line with a very comfortable fingering, like the most comfortable fingering ever. And that's a really great thing because playing in this way, you might be sure at least about the beginning. If you start worrying already about the first two notes, playing that with a traditional fingering, you're in trouble. So starting like that helps a lot. Then in the bar number 2, when we have a musical rest in the left hand, we can move our hand quickly and take that third in the left hand. Of course, regarding the polyphony, we have to play all these notes that we take in the left hand instead of the right hand lighter. So providing enough support in the thumb for these chords, and then playing that 16 note lighter. Then in the bar number 3, what I do here on the third beat, I use 3, 4, 3, 3. So I slide down from C sharp with the third finger, and in order to do it lighter, I also use my elbow just a little bit, a tiny bit. I push my elbow a bit apart, and that makes this slide even easier, like that. And then I take the E on the fourth beat in the left hand. And then I take all these notes in the lower voice in the left hand. Of course, here, for example, in the bar number 4, on the second beat, we have a quarter in the left hand and just 16ths in the middle voice. So I would play them shorter and lighter. But nevertheless, it's much easier than playing all these in the right hand. And also here, taking that G in the left hand helps a lot. And then again, taking that C in the left hand. Similar story in the bar number 7. On the fourth beat, we can take that A in the left hand, playing just the second in the right hand. And then in the bar number 8, on the third beat, of course, while we have a musical rest in the left hand, we can take advantage of this opportunity. Just use your pedal in order to hold that octave as long as necessary, but move your hand quickly. Just use your pedal in order to hold that octave as long as necessary, but move your hand quicker. And of course, a similar spot in bar number 17. Voicing that voice in the left hand, D, C, but playing E with the left hand lighter. So playing that E lighter, and then I use 1, 2, 3, 5. for the last, for the fourth beat, and I take that D in the left hand, of course playing it lighter, and then changing the finger from 5 to 2, like that. And in the next bar, number 18, I'm committing a crime. So let's keep this secret between us, okay? So in the bar number 18, on the first beat, I drop that A that is supposed to play with the thumb and play just... And that's a great solution because it helps me to play without any problems and without much practicing, just using comfortable fingering. But unless you're going to announce that from the stage, hey guys, I'm deliberately skip that note, nobody's really going to notice that and make a big fuss about that. Then about alternative fingering. In bar number 18, I also use the most comfortable fingering for that descending chromatic scale. Release, and then I just play 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, and then I slightly turn my hand and play 5, 4. Thanks to pedal, we can imitate legato without playing it physically. So, for example, in the bar number 18, on the fourth beat, I play just 4, 3, 2, 1, and while playing 1, I simultaneously flip my hand over like that. And then a similar story in the next bar number 21. So here, 4, 3, 2, 1, flipping the hand on the thumb and continue playing with 2, 3. And even later at the next bar, or number 22, also here, 4, 3, 2, 1, flipping the hand, connecting that with pedal, and landing on 4, 2. Now at the bar number 25, at the fourth beat, there is a good suggestion about fingering that goes as 5, 4, 3, 1, and then starting that with 5, 2, or 1, 4. But I feel myself actually not really comfortable with that. So I played just 5, 4, 3, 4, connecting that with pedal. And in the bar number 29, I felt myself quite uncomfortable between beats number 1 and 2. So I decided to play that 5, 4, 3, 2, connecting that with pedal, and just moving your hand toward the next hand position. And if you mark that A flat just a tiny bit and use pedal in order to connect those positions, you might actually imitate a legato pretty well without playing it physically. And then the last fingering suggestion in bar number 45, at the very last passage, it's very important to play that second with one finger, just thumb. Because if you play that 1 to 4, you have that stretch that makes it less comfortable. So then there are a few efficiency concepts that you should be aware of if you want to master this etude relatively quickly and to have as little problems as possible with it. So the first concept is rotation. Rotation is very important. It has a drastic importance for piano playing, and I really suggest you, if you are not introduced to it, I really suggest you to dig into this topic and to learn more about it. Of course, one of the best explanations about rotations in piano playing belong to Taubman method, and all this is available online, so you can learn about that pretty easily. But in short, without going in much detail here, so you start from rotating your hand slightly left, leaning on the thumb, then you go right, and then